You translated instead, based on the tone. He was enjoying it. I'm sure he is. Your hand roamed, your fingers rising and falling across the grooves of his chest, occasionally squeezing tight muscles to watch Cove's trembling reactions. As you finally retrieved your hand from under Cove's shirt, he let out another heavy breath. You touched his thigh. Reaching down, you ran a hand along his thigh. He tensed, then gave you a wobbly smile, as if feeling bad about how much he was impacted by the sensation. As you continued to stroke your hand along his leg, he bit his lip, eyes fluttering closed. He was far more accepting of it now than you'd snuck it on. Not now than when you snuck it on him at the charity dinner. Given how blissed out he looked at each stroke, you gained a new understanding of just why that was. Cove was so open, he couldn't hide a reaction like this, even if you're in public. Cove reached over and let his fingertips ghost down your spine. As you sighed, pleased, he allowed his palm to brush against you and cup your butt. Oh, now Cove's going for it, ladies and gentlemen. Your grip on him tightened immediately. He left you just as speechless as you had done to him. Cove enveloped you in his arms completely, strapping across your torso and back in order to bring you in close for a kiss. As he kissed you, the pressure from his mouth and arms increased. You could feel his legs shifting along your sides. And then, he used his newfound hold on you to roll over without warning. You were abruptly laid flat on your back, the mattress beneath you, while Cove pinned you down from above. Oh! How the tables have turned! This definitely is kinda hot. It knocked the little breath you had left right out of you. The kiss ended, but he had yet to open his eyes. You were both frozen. It was only when he slowly let his half-lidded ocean eyes look at your face that he understood what he'd done. You got to watch comprehension dawn on his face as he first frowned, puzzled by the change in view. It was then eased by understanding, followed by mortification as his face flooded with color.
Oh my god.
It's perfectly natural, dude. He extracted himself abruptly, but carefully, trying to avoid pushing down on you any further as he got up, primely taking a seat on the edge of the bed. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. From the way he was studiously looking anywhere but at you, you knew at once that he was too embarrassed to go any further. The blush that reached all the way to the tips of his ears was merely extra confirmation. Cove had accidentally shown more provocativeness than it seemed he was ready to admit to, which is perfectly fine. Go at the pace. Communication is very important. Communicate what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with, and go at a pace that you're both comfortable with. His embarrassment was sweet and made it easy to feel like the more confident one in the pair. Make it easy to feel like the more confident one in the pair again. You couldn't suppress the grin emblazoned on your face. You joined him in sitting upright. He cleared his throat, trying to regain some control over the situation. I wish you could stay, but it's getting late. You need to head home and get some rest. He looked at you, attempting to feign an innocent expression.
I mean,
I'm not that innocent. I mean, what if something just happened to happen tomorrow? Oh! Is he telling me what I think he's telling me? Oh boy! Somebody's a little thirsty. You had to laugh. Cove cracked a smile, acknowledging his poor attempt at subterfuge. How about I walk you back? I can manage crossing the road by myself. You stay here and get your own rest, maybe take a cold shower. Then let me walk you to the door at least. Alright. You silently headed back into the living room together, comfortable with each other's presence. You stopped by the front door. I like that sentence, comfortable with each other's presence, especially after a scene like that. I like that. Good night, Vaughn. I have to admit, Cove has come a long way. He's come a very long way. His voice was soft, like a comforter you just wanted to wrap around yourself forever. But Cove was right. You had to go for today. Good night, Cove. With that, you opened the door and stepped outside. When you walked out into the street, you noticed that Mr. Holden was still standing out there. He looked up at the sound of the door closing behind you, his phone in hand, and smiled as he sized up the situation.
Oh?
You were in there a while. I hope that's good news. Everything's fantastic. I got it all taken care of. I'm sorry for keeping you out here so long. Were you really going to stand out here in the dark until I left? Thanks for letting me know about this. It's all better now. Great. Glad to hear it. Everything truly resolved, you exchanged goodnight wishes with Mr. Holden before continuing the very brief trip home. Not wishing to disturb anyone, you quietly snuck inside and gently pushed the door closed behind you. As it clicked into place with a minimum of fuss, you let out a sigh. Your mind buzzed as you climbed the steps up to your room. Cove had done so much just to make you happy, and you knew he'd be back tomorrow with another big surprise. I wonder what it is. You were determined to fully appreciate his effort. You wanted to prepare a gift to surprise him too. You resolved enough was enough. You were going to change the plans and make him surprised. You resolved enough was enough. You were going to thank him with a gift and surprise him with a change of plans. He clearly had... There's things that I personally would hate. If I went through so much trouble to plan something, it would not... I would hate it if somebody, like, kind of threw a monkey wrench into it and then turned it around and canceled it just to surprise me. Like, it's a good thought, but it's not my first... It's not the most appealing and ideal thing for me. So, yeah, because I would hate somebody doing that to me, even if you were my significant other, that just... It would just rub me the wrong way. I would get over it and would, you know, kind of fake a smile and just try to genuinely brush it off and enjoy the surprise instead after my plans had been kind of thwarted. But yeah, because I wouldn't want that to happen to me, I'm not going to change it, but I will prepare a gift to surprise him with too. I'm not going to change anything. Cove had brought you 2 gifts already, and odds are a third was coming. It was time to return the tables and have something ready to give him. At this hour, that was easier said than done. Most stores were long closed, and Cove would be here bright and early to surprise you tomorrow morning. That ruled out purchasing a gift the way that he'd done for you. He did? Oh, yeah, the lens. Luckily, you'd known Cove long enough to see a solution to this problem. Am I gonna get a shell? Your neighbor was always happy. Was always a happy boy when he was given food. Oh. Yeah, that's what I would do. Way to a man's heart. You were sure you could rustle something fitting that description out of the kitchen, one way or another. Feeling invigorated, you spun around and sped back downstairs. It was time to put your plan into action. You were a great chef, you could make something he loved. You were a decent cook, you could make something he loved. You could manage cooking, mostly. You could figure out how to make something he loved. You struggled with cooking, you'd have to find some way to make something he loved. You were a disaster in the kitchen. You weren't sure how you'd manage to make something he loved. I'm wondering if the last one, I didn't look at the last one, is like, order takeout for something he loved. You're going to find something he loved that didn't need preparation. Okay. No, I like to think I'm a great chef. I could make something he loved. You size up your options. With an early start, you'll be able to pull together something simple in the morning. Simple? Fine. Simple is fine. If you wanted to go for something more elaborate and time-consuming, you need to do it right now. There was also the option of rallying the troops. Your moms knew how to cook wonderfully, and you could easily persuade them to give you a hand with this. No. I'm doing this alone. You decided to do it alone. I'm a good cook. I don't need anybody to help me. It was for the best. You chose to bake cinnamon rolls. You were going to make banana peanut butter and honey sandwiches. Ooh, you'd make him homemade fudge. So I've already given him fudge. Banana peanut butter and honey sandwiches sounds great, but I'm gonna put in more effort and bake cinnamon rolls because Cove is a cinnamon roll. It's more meaningful that way. Even as a grumpy little boy who just moved in, cinnamon, sugar, and frosting had brought a smile to his face. He was going to light up with childlike glee when he saw what you had planned. There was no time like the present. You found a suitable recipe and started pulling ingredients out, ready to be measured. Once you had everything you needed lined up and ready for attention, you began working through the steps. You made the dough quickly, knowing it would need time to rise before it would be ready to roll out and let you continue the recipe. You strapped the dough into a bowl with cling film, hoping that the yeast would do its job. You needn't have worried. An hour later, the dough had doubled in size, just as promised. You continued the recipe, rolling out the dough, layering it with cinnamon sugar filling that Cove had so loved, and readied the rolls for the oven. Soon the kitchen was full of sweet smells as the heat joined the ingredients into one. The sweet smell of cinnamon rolls baking in the kitchen. I can just imagine it. With Thanksgiving around the corner, I'm dreaming about food all the time. As you waited for the timer, your mind continuously drifted back to younger days, where you recalled the chatter of tourists and seagulls on the busy shopping street that had felt so vast when you were a child. Eventually, a beeping brought you back to the present. The rolls luckily came out fluffy and golden, naked without their white frosting coats. You'd whip that up while they were baking, but you had to fight the urge to ice them right away. Right, because you have to cool them first, otherwise the icing is just gonna melt and dissolve away. Until they'd cooled, any frosting you put on them would melt right away. That's what I said, see? See? I'm a good cook. See? Once you were satisfied that they'd cooled down, you topped them with a sufficiently thick layer of frosting. You dusted off your hands, satisfied with the job well done. With your mission accomplished, you headed back up to your room. You took the steps lightly, feeling buoyed as you imagined how happy Cove would be with your unexpected gift. Cove was working so hard to make you happy, you dearly wanted your partner to be happy too. Of course! You could only hope your efforts would work as well for him as his plans were working for you. You were up early the next day, ready for and waiting for Cove's inevitable appearance. Your ears were perked, listening for the doorbell, but instead, what you heard was a familiar rapping on the window pane, because I gave him so much stuff. I gave him so much grief for opening the front door, coming to the front door. There was no need to look to know who that was. Only one visitor used your window as his personal entranceway. Getting up, you headed over to let him in. You gazed into your neighbor's face as you unfastened the window, opening it wide. He smiled at you, still crouched in the window ledge. Hi, I'm glad you're here. Surprise? Surprise! Tired of using the front door already? You waited for him to say something. Tired of using the front door already? Cove's laugh was as airy as the cotton candy sold on the boardwalk. He was in good spirits. Surprise! I'm really keeping you on your toes. What will I do next? That is true, that is a surprise. He waggled his eyebrows at the joke as you stepped back to let him enter the room. Today, he clambered through with extra difficulty thanks to the object he was clutching securely. You guessed it was another gift. You really didn't need to bring me anything else, so what did you bring this time? Thank you. You waited for him to bring it up. I would wait. Sure, he'd know that you'd seen it and probably reached your own conclusions, but he'd worked hard on his surprises, so you wanted to play along. Yeah. Cove smiled sheepishly and as he held out the present to you. With a bit of flair, Cove put together 2 mugs, like he was giving a toast. Both cups were stamped with the Sunset Bird Town symbol. One for you and one for me. I thought it'd be pretty fitting, with us sticking it out here for a while longer. His eyes were trained on you, searching for your emotion on it. I hope you like it. You kissed him, you hugged him, you shook your head affectionately, you felt your tears welling in your eyes, you simply smiled at him. You kissed him. In no time at all, you closed the distance between you and brought your lips to his. Though startled, Cove happily returned the kiss while still holding your present carefully. Thank you, I definitely like it. This means a lot to me, you're so cute, I can't believe you were lost for words. This means a lot to me. He chuckled self-consciously as he gave a long look to the meaningful gift he had selected. It was as if growing heavier. It was as if it was growing heavier in his hands. I really do support your goals. I just want you to know that. Yeah, I know. When you accepted the thoughtful present into your own grasp. Only once he transferred ownership and cemented it with your approval. Did Coven straighten up and pull himself together.
Well...
only once he transferred ownership and cemented with your approval did Cove straighten up and pull himself together.
Well...
Okay, well, would it be alright for me to take you out today? We could, I don't know, go to the aquarium? He smirked, already anticipating that you'd say yes. Of course, I'd go anywhere with you, only as long as it'll make you happy too. Alright, but you're lucky I've got time for you in my busy schedule. You nodded quietly. Alright, but you're lucky I've got time for you in my busy schedule. His expression brightened further. That was exactly what he'd hoped for.
Thanks.
Thanks, Vaughn. You were glad to see how happy your acceptance had made him. But before Cove could whisk you away on another big outing, you made your own move. Your surprise would be better now than when you got back late that night. Yeah, while it's still relatively fresh. Actually, before we go, I got something for you too.
What?
Really? It was amazing how surprised he was. Cove had spent 3 days raining gifts and special trips on you, but he hadn't at all counted on you doing something in return. What is it? Stay here for a second and I'll show you. I want him to close his eyes and I'll just hold it up to his nose and have him react that way. He watched you expectantly as you turned around to head downstairs. You reached where the cinnamon rolls were waiting and collected the prize. Hopefully nobody ate them. Liz. Mom. Ma. Those are Cove's cinnamon rolls. As you flipped back around to your room, gift in hand, there was a smile playing out across your face. Cove was patiently waiting where you'd left him, tapping his fingers against the sides of his pants. Surprise! Here it is! Hope you're hungry. I hope it's enough for a growing boy like you. It's a thank you gift for everything. It's a thank you gift for everything. He looked curiously, barely believing that you'd gone to the effort to select a present for him at such short notice. You handed the gift over for his inspection. His eyes widened. His eyes widened as he saw the treat. I whipped this up just for you. Oh. He blinked, the present totally taking him by surprise, but his eyes were alight with glee. You made me cinnamon rolls? I love them, though I don't get them a lot. They're not the kind of thing we normally have around. Why haven't I not been baking this boy cinnamon rolls this entire time? What's wrong with you, Vaughn? That's what I would be doing. He glanced up at you shyly. I can't believe you still remembered. It's amazing. Why did it take you 10 years to cook? A good cook is you, Vaughn. Why did it take you 10 years to make this boy some cinnamon rolls? What's the matter with you, Vaughn? You chuckled, recalling those moments long ago that you'd spent together. How could you not remember the days with a guy like him? The sentimental air was quickly dispersed as he scooped up a cinnamon bun and gracelessly squished half of it into his mouth. Do you like it? I could take a guess, but it'd be nice to know for sure. Cove kept chewing, gesturing apologetically to his occupied mouth. Finally, after what felt like an age, he swallowed. It's so good, the best one I've ever had. Cove wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, now a little calmer after the initial burst of excitement. His feelings instead settled into an easy, warm affection.
It's nice.
Thank you for this. It's so nice of you. You're welcome. I would give anything for you, Cove. I would give anything for you, Cove. Just do me a favor. Don't eat so fast that you choke. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you like it. You blushed from his praise. His features softened, and you felt like you were being thoroughly appreciated. The food you gave was also getting its due attention. He'd already gone in for a second serving. You couldn't blame his indulgence. That said, the amount you'd given him was enough for several servings, far more than even Cove could usually finish at once. You made sure of it. That's because I'm a good boyfriend. But, as he continued to devour it, you were starting to suspect that polishing it all off was the goal. In spite of the generous portion, he was willing to try and eat it all in order to show you how much he liked the present. You're gonna make yourself sick. It's okay to save some for later. I don't mind. Maybe this is a bad idea after all, you joke. You laughed at his attempt to prove himself. It's okay to save some for later. I don't mind. That's what I would do, and I would encourage him to save it. Savor it. Savor it. You could tell that he wanted to show how taken he was with the gift, but you'd not presented it to him as a challenge to be overcome. Cove finished his current bite and let out a satisfied sigh.
Alright,
I'll stop for now. There's other stuff to do, and I can have more later. Exactly. I like leftovers. Leftovers are not a bad thing. You smiled at him, relieved that your gift could be enjoyed and not inhaled. You clapped your hands, signaling that your diversion had come to an end. All right, now we can head off for your surprise, too. Cove laughed. Yours was a better surprise for sure. It was a real one. But yeah. He grinned broadly as if the exchange had fired him up even further. I'm definitely gonna take you out now. Take me out, I know you don't know, I know. Okay. Cove offered you his hand. You welcomed it. You shook your head, not needing it now. Yeah, I'll welcome it. You took his hand in yours, palm to palm. Cove squeezed your hand before heading out the door, guiding you along. Hand in hand, you wove down the stairs together, out of the house and into the neighborhood. Cove's car was parked nearby. He had locked it, allowing you to reach to your regular spot in the passenger seat. Cove paused to put what remained of his present safely away before hopping into the driver's seat. He set off, beginning your trip to the third and final activity of Cove's grand happiness plan. You settled in fully for the trip out to the aquarium in the city. It would be a bit of a drive, but you didn't mind. You made an attempt to start a conversation. It's kind of funny we've never done this before now. Why haven't we? I don't know. Why haven't we? Probably because I've never thought about going to the aquarium with anyone before this. Wait, seriously? You've never gone to the aquarium ever? Yep, that's right. Never. And not just this specific one either. I haven't been to an aquarium, period. Somebody who loves the water so much and seashells has never been to an aquarium. I find that very surprising. Wow. This might be brand new for Cove, but you'd been to this aquarium before. That made two of you hadn't been to the aquarium either. I would have been to the aquarium. You had more experience with aquariums than Cove Holden. That simply sounded wrong. Can I ask why not? I figured you'd have begged to go. Cove tapped the tips of his fingers against the steering wheel, his face scrunching in contemplation. When I was growing up, my dad did try to take me. I'd never been before because I was so little. I said no. Whenever he'd try to talk about it, I'd tell my dad I'd rather go to the actual beach on my own. But there's so many cool things in the aquarium that you can't see or learn or experience directly in a beach. Or he could at least take me to the fish part of the pet store, but not the aquarium. That's not the same thing. Eventually, he didn't ask about it anymore. He must have figured I'd had something against it. When he stopped mentioning the aquarium, I stopped thinking about it. It just never came back to my mind. His expression shifted to one of bemused confusion. The thing is, I don't know what I had against it, if I did have a problem. Maybe I didn't like the idea of seeing water I wasn't allowed to go in, or to meet fish I could never bring home. That sounds like the kind of thing little me might have gotten upset over. Or maybe I just wasn't okay with doing a new kind of trip. It'd be to someplace new, and with only my dad, Mom wouldn't be there anymore.
I guess
that might have made it seem not worth doing right off the bat. That's 8-year-old me for you. I can see that in 8-year-old Cove, 100%. Cove shook his head with a pained smile, then his tone dropped to a distant whisper. It was only when thinking about stuff I could do with you that I finally remembered I could go to an aquarium. Oh. He pulled his mouth into a bent smile and straightened his shoulders. He didn't want to bring the mood down. It all worked out in the end because I got to really surprise you with the news, huh? Yeah, you totally got me there. You're adorable. I hope it'll be worth it now. I'm flattered you're letting me be there for your first time at an aquarium. Thank you for thinking of me. You quietly nodded, though he couldn't see you while diving. You're adorable. He said nothing, only let out a bashful sigh. The conversation continued on with idle chatter about what you'd do when you got there. Then, the large angular building decorated with ocean-themed cutouts came into view. You'd arrived at your destination. You hopped out of the car and headed over to the imposingly large guest entrance way. Cove's eyes swiveled around to let his curious eyes take in every view, and you weren't even inside yet. So, and apparently, this parking lot, again, looks exactly like the parking lot of the other venues. Exactly. Apparently. Jeez. You could see the realization of what he'd been missing out on dawn on him in real time. Cove bounced on the balls of his feet as the two of you stood in line to get tickets. His excitement continued to build. Whoa, look at that, ladies and gentlemen, that's beautiful. When you finally were face to face with the tanks, you could hear Cove quietly gasp from your side. He briskly took some large strides to get further into the room and to get closer to the glass barrier. There he stood still. After taking a moment for himself, he whipped around to look at you. Cove was outright vibrating with excitement. His mouth opened in a large smile, but all that came out was tiny with squeaking giggles. It bubbled down into a full-on giddy laughter before he was able to speak in interest. Each world was full of joy. It's amazing! I love it here! You should have come here a long time ago, Cove. This is why you gotta be able to get the courage to try something new. Get the courage to try something new because you never know what you're missing. I love it too. Of course you do. You have to laugh at his obvious conclusion. I'm really glad. This is going to be a tiring day, but it's good. You shook your head in amusement. Of course you do. You have to laugh at his obvious conclusion. There's no way someone like you would hate a place like this. He cheered back without hesitation. Yeah, the aquarium is great. The two of you wasted no time before rushing around the place. You went every which way across the aquarium. Cove was enthralled by each new sight, his eyes alight like a kid in a candy store, and a perpetual smile made its home on his face. No metaphorical stone was left unturned. He viewed all the tanks from his tallest of heights on tippy toes, as well as crouching as low to the floor as you could manage. Your exuberance was just as bright as his, buoyed, nice, by how happy you were that he had found such happiness. You beamed. After making an entire trip through the whole building, you and Cove finally slowed the pace down. You'd arrived back at the original viewing room. It was a good spot for a break. Cove stood quietly near the tank in almost the same spot as he had when he first took in the view. Somehow that moment already felt like a long time ago. You weren't sure if he was feeling the same way. Cove simply watched the watery world inside with open fondness. He wouldn't get tired of that view ever. You were certain of that. You walked up to stand by him, taking in the same otherworldly experience of having a sea right in front of you. Suddenly, Cove swallowed hard. Your head tilted. He wasn't looking at you. His eyes were glued to the vast ocean view in front of him. But his bright face red but his bright red face reflected clearly in the floor, the ceiling glass pane separating aquarium goers from the water. You couldn't understand. Nothing had happened. Then realization came. This was Cove. He was flustered because he was thinking about doing something. Cove always got that way when he was mentally building himself up. You nodded to yourself and elected to keep your lips zipped. You wanted to give him a chance to do whatever it was he had cooking. So there's a lot of fish in here, huh? Yep. His mouth clamped shut after those vague, stuttered words. You could feel a tension growing. After a breathless pause, he spoke again. You know, if you were a fish, you'd be a paradise fish, because with you is like being in paradise. Ooh, ooh. Cove pressed his forehead against the glass with his eyes wide and gazed down as he fervently refused to even peek at what reaction you might be giving. Oh my gosh. He was blushing wildly, feeling unparalleled embarrassment over the line he just dropped. You smiled adoringly while watching him. You burst into laughter. You covered your face with your hands bashfully. You stood still, sir. You smiled adoringly while watching him. He was too cute. It was unreal. You had plenty of fish name knowledge up your sleeve to use for this too. You're a paradise fish too. I would say I would. Well, if you were a fish, you'd be a diamond tetra because you're a treasure, a clownfish. Silver dollar, specifically 20 silver dollars. You know, no, I'm not gonna go there. Kissing gourami, at least hopefully you will be. Sunrise guppy because you're my adorable ray of sunshine. Teardrop butterfly because you cry a lot. Oh my. I'm gonna say diamond tetra because you're a treasure. Oh. He continued to speak after his initial exclamation, but it was so mumbled you weren't sure what it was. Cove had completely lost control of the conversation that he'd started, and he did not know what to do about that. Ultimately, he settled for turning his burning face away from you even more, as well as covering a cheek with a hand for good measure. Leaving him speechless, you feeling rather pleased. After that, Cove wanted to go around the aquarium again. He hoped to let it all sink in at a more leisurely pace while you were here. Plus, he desperately wanted more time to settle down after his latest big attempt at flirting. Yeah, I'm very proud of him for that. The two of you began your second loop down the paths. It took no time at all to become absorbed in the incredible sea life once more. There wasn't nearly enough time in a single day to satisfy Cove's desire to exist inside of the aquarium, but the day did have to end eventually. Despite obviously wanting to linger longer, Cove left the building with a skip in his step. It had been a good trip. The two of you shut the doors of Cove's car behind you as you took your usual seats. The clicking of seatbelts punctuated the end of the adventure. I would absolutely do that again. No kidding. Cove chuckled as he pulled the car out of the parking spot, spirits still as high as ever. On the return leg of the journey, you felt Cove lapse deep into a world of thought. Typically, even when conversation was exhausted, his eyes would flick to you occasionally, and you'd exchange smiles and other gestures. This time, his focus was split purely between the road and the recesses of his mind. But there was no sign of trouble in his features, so you were happy to let him mull over whatever he needed to in peace. The trip drifted by in comfortable silence. Before long, you were back in the neighborhood. You each left through your respective sides, and Cove stepped around the vehicle to stand with you. Wordlessly, he gestured to your home. He was intending to take you there. Perhaps he felt the trip wasn't truly over until you were literally inside your house. Didn't he say you wanted to do something today? As in the tomorrow from yesterday? You contentedly continued to go with Cove on his whims, and you went inside. Once under the light of your living room lamps, his eyes locked onto yours.
Thank
you, Vaughn. I know all of this was a lot, but I really did have so much fun. He grinned in an almost conspiratorial way. We really did it, this whole entire dumb plan of mine. I was happy it all became a reality. I hope you're happy too. Of course. I've never been happier. All I want is for you to be happy. Well, I felt worse. All I want is for you to be happy. The smile he wore was small, even restrained compared to some of the grins he'd flashed earlier, but it was imbued with a calm, comforting contentment. In this moment, he was as joyful as you'd ever seen him. His next words escaped in a whisper. No one makes me feel the way you do. But he moved the conversation along before you had a chance to react to that admission. It had to be intentional.
Vaughn,
Could I ask for you to go along with one more surprise? Oh, here it is. Here it is. It's Derek! No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. His voice was gentle, even as he implored you for a little more. The question itself was a surprise.